Whosoever Group Podcast. This is your host, the Happy Crow, and guess what? We have a special guest host today, and we were supposed to have another guest, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. But this other host that we got here today, oh, she's great. You know why she's great? She's my wife. So this is my wife, Carissa, or the Happy Crow's wife, whatever you want to call her. Say hi.
Hello.
So this week is going to be a bit of a heavy topic, another passionate topic. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about this, and I'm not because I don't want to be here. You understand what I mean? Now, before we get into this, I am going to preference all of this with something very important. If you want to hear what we have to say, you need to listen from the beginning to end. Because if you don't, this is going to wind up being something you're going to get a soundbite from and not get context. And then you're going to wind up getting very upset about one side or the other about this. This is bigger than size. This is something very important. And getting a soundbite is not going to help you. It's not going to help anybody else. So you need to listen to the entirety of this. All right.
So, sit down, strap in, and
Strap in, boys,
ready for a wild ride.
I got the picture of the penguins from Madagascar. Let's go, boys, go, go, go. All right. So today is going to be called What's Next? When I say what's next, I'm referencing our country, our world, our faith. What is next with what we're doing? We seem to have gone over a cliff, and I do believe we have. We passed all the stop signs. We've moved, and the bridge is out. There's hope, though. Don't worry. So once we get to the end, make sure you, once again, fully listen because there is hope. And I don't want you to leave with despair. So let's start with a recap of this year. Or this past year, I should say. We're in 2021. And by the way, happy 2021. This is our first episode of 2021.
First video.
First video also, as long as it works correctly.
Hopefully.
Once I get into, editing. So that'll be fun. But no, this is our... Let's do this recap of this past year. So how much did you love 2020?
I didn't.
Oh, what? No, come on. It was so great. Nothing bad happened, right?
I had to be locked in a house with you for 2 weeks.
That was like icing on a cake. That was just...
It was what?
Icing. We have this argument all the time, by the way. So
there's not another N. It's icing.
As long as you understand that, you're wrong.
Anyway, sing.
So, speaking of exactly what you said, our first thing is the coronavirus. So that started.
I could live without hearing that ever again.
So we started off with coronavirus, and that started at in around
March 13th is when Governor Wolf for Pennsylvania.
That's when we're at, where they shut down. Now,
that's when he announced the shutdown.
But let's talk about it. It started in late 2019 that we know of in China, and then it came over here and went all around the world. It has passports for everything. It went around, and now we got lockdowns everywhere. Our entire way of life has been upside down.
Mass hysteria, cats and dogs
living together.
That is Ghostbusters, in case you don't know that one.
If you don't know that, you're too young. Anyway, but everything that happened, this is something no one ever expected. Go back in 2018 and say, hey, early 2019, say, hey, 2020, when we get there, this is going to happen. They're going to look at you, whoever you time traveled and talked to, because you know how readily available time machines are. So they're going to be like, what? You had it what? No, really? What? None of it's going to make sense. And you especially tell them about the dancing nurses on TikTok. They're going to be like, what? Anyways.
TikTok? What is that?
No, TikTok was around. It was not as prevalent, but it was definitely around.
Talking about it in the future. Maybe it'll be gone.
We wouldn't be so lucky. So you had Corona happen, people locked in their houses. Everyone is scared. There's a lot of people. There's people dying. There's people not knowing what's going to happen next. It's very freaky. It's not normal, and nothing has been normal ever since, unfortunately.
It's
So
very disheartening.
yes, very. So we go from that into what happened to George Floyd and his unfortunate death, and that triggered a whole chain of events that went from you have the one person's death, and you have like let's talk about like Rodney King when he was beat, wrongfully so. Just want to clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was beat, you had riots all over L.A. We now have this thing next to me, and the thing that I'm recording on my cell phone because I'm poor. That
Oh, you're
it,
resourceful.
that's right. That we can all talk across the country to each other at any point in time. Everything is boom, 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 instantaneous. So now it's not riots in LA. Now it's everywhere. And we got what was, and we've talked about this on video. I've talked about this on one of my Crow's calls, and then I wrote an article talking about it. Um, it might have been called "Where Do We Go From Here?" So maybe.
Yes, I believe you're correct.
Okay. And so you have all this, and now we have this time where the media is justifying everything. Now, clarification, what I mean, because now here's where everyone starts to get offended. Okay, calm down, sit back, relax. It's okay.
Okay.
So we have this. When I say media says everything's okay, I'm not saying his death. I'm not saying injustice is okay. No, all of that's wrong. All of it. But the second anyone destroys something, and that's including life, like George Floyd's life, other people's lives who have been wrongfully hurt and killed, not okay. Not a single blessed person that I know saw that video and said, you know what, the cops were right.
No,
I'm sure
it was completely wrong.
I'm sure there's crazies out there who somehow made a justification, but that moment,
And they need lots of prayer.
that's right. At that moment, America came together and said, no, this is wrong. And then the time bomb went off. This time, this time bomb was festering from the everybody being cooped up, having problems for years that people feel that their voices aren't getting heard, and boom. Then, like I said, the media is justifying. This is once you start breaking people's stuff, hurting people, and then you have things like Antifa, and then you even have the Proud Boys being idiots. There's a definite distinction between the two. That's a whole long topic that I'm not going to get into. But they have plenty of wrong on their end too. But the media justified it. That's where I'm going, wait a second. This is not okay. We can't justify this. You can't justify destruction and call it peace. The Bible talks about this. It says that in the end times, you're going to have people calling everything exactly the opposite. Peace is not, war is peace. It's actually a quote from 1984. War is peace, freedom, and slavery. None of it is true. It's all completely wrong. And this happened. Then you had conservatives, people on the right. I'm going to be using air quotes because there's a lot of things that I am not going to try not to associate myself or other people with, or my values are conservative, but I'm not going with any movement because I'm not part of a blessed movement. My only movement is Jesus, period. So you have the conservative movement going against everything going on, and they were right. They were right to criticize destruction. Peaceful protest, no one has a problem with. But as soon as you go to destruction, that's an issue across the board. Then you have then all that's going on nonstop. You had, and I've talked about this before, but I'm never going to get over this because it's burned into my brain forever. You have CNN with a reporter on the street. This is CNN. No, you have a guy on the street, and he's going, "Hey, this is a," on the car on the bottom. He's reporting and saying, "It says fiery but mostly peaceful protest." That will never leave my brain because what you are talking about is a paradox. It doesn't go together. I'm sorry. And the fact that you put that there is like, wait. And then in live time, I saw it happen in live time. Somebody in the control room goes, "Yo, no, we can't have that there. Somebody switched that. I don't know who put that in there." I was like, "Oh man, they got me." No, and they quick deleted it and changed it because it was just pure stupidity. You can't call right wrong and wrong right. It doesn't work that way. And then while all this is going on, you have the Democratic primaries. And oh, what a lovely mudslinging show that was. Because before the election, you had all this stuff going on. You had Kamala Harris, who now is our vice president elect, going hard against Joe Biden and his rhetoric.
Oh, it was hilarious.
His rhetoric and his history and President-elect Joe Biden and his rhetoric and history with racism and other things. And she called him out left, right for things he said, and she had every right to.
Mm-hmm.
And then we switched from that. Then now she is the vice president-elect. And the media said, this is fine. What? Call a spade a spade. If something is true about something, if somebody truly has something wrong, call them out on it. No problem for me. If I'm wrong, call me out on it. If I don't feel that I'm wrong, guess what? We're gonna have a discussion where you have two options. Where you can either agree to disagree,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm gonna say, you know what, you're right. That's called being an adult.
You're a humble man.
Contrary to popular belief. So you have those. Then all that happened. And by the way, I'm going to do a history lesson for everyone who forgot by now because it's been 5 minutes.
Before you get into your history lesson,
go ahead.
So as you were talking about peace and all the fun stuff that goes with peace, I am staring at your verse on the wall. Would you like to
elaborate on it?
Elaborate on the piece that verse is talking about.
Okay.
And the piece that you were talking about.
Yes, very true. I was either waiting for someone to comment on it or waiting for someone to ask me about it. And so there you go. We did not plan this, by the way.
It just came to my mind as you were talking, and I just kept staring at it. And I'm like, well, that's two
contradictory statements,
yes,
right?
It is.
You know why it's a contradictory statement? Because it's not. Here's why. Suppose that I am come to give peace on earth? No, I tell you rather division. That's Jesus talking. Wait, Jesus said love, kumbaya, and all that. Yeah, kind of, but not the way you're thinking. What Jesus actually said was, my peace is truth.
Mm-hmm.
Truth isn't popular, and truth is going to divide.
Yes.
So if I tell you you're wrong, if you have in your heart the ability, you know what, stop, retrospect, and go forward, and maybe your person's right, maybe they're wrong, whatever, but you can at least take that stopping moment to be like, am I in the wrong here? And that moment is what we're talking about. Jesus said, my truth is going to divide because people don't want to see it. The media doesn't want to see it. The world doesn't want to see it. The world didn't want to see it. That's why they killed him. They're never going to want to. Broad is the way to destruction. Narrow is the way to heaven. Why? Because people don't want truth. For an example for that, I will give you the story of Lazarus, not the one who was raised from the dead.
Pray tell.
Lazarus, the poor man. The Bible doesn't say what the rich man's name was, but they say the poor man's name. The rich man, and the poor man, they both died. The poor man died, but he followed God. And he, at that time, this is before Christ cleared the way to heaven. This is a long theological discussion, but so they were in what was called Abraham's bosom, which is considered paradise, before the road was actually paved to heaven. If you want to know more about that, please shoot us an email and we will explain it better. Um, but so he's there, and the rich man who did not follow God, he was in hell. He looked up because he could physically see the other side. He could see it, and he's like, wait a second. Could you at least like get a drop of water? That's how desperate, a drop, and put it on my tongue. They said, no, the chasm's too wide.
Okay, I remember this story now.
There you go. The chasm's too wide. And then he said, well, could you at least go back and tell my family? He said, and they see someone come back to life, surely they're going to believe, because I don't want them to come here. Mm. At that moment, that's where repentance happens. But it's too late. So that's at that moment that he said, if they didn't believe Moses or the prophets, because once again, this is before Christ, this is something Christ is telling, they're not going to believe a man raised from the dead. That's the division we're talking about. That where truth is irrelevant and what God says is irrelevant. Because even something that's true to this world doesn't make it true in God's eyes. Because if all of humanity comes together and agrees on something, that doesn't make it truth. What God says is truth, period. And if that's going to divide, it's going to turn brothers against sisters, dads against sons, all of that. Because if you don't want to see it and you're not going to agree with it, the truth is just going to rip everything apart. Mm. But then once it's all really broken down and you allow yourself to surrender to that truth, that's when Christ goes, okay, I'm going to build you back up. So that's what that means. His peace is in truth. It's not in this division, not in our division. His division, his dividing of truth versus lies. So, and actually the Bible talks about that. The word is a two-edged sword. Mm-hmm. It's meant to cut apart. And actually, I did a post on this today on my personal Facebook page. Or yesterday.
It was today.
It was today.
Yeah.
Where I talked about it, and completely unplanned. But I see people using the Bible as a sword to attack what you don't like, but never willing to turn that against yourself. Because I'm more than willing to be cut by the word. But if you're not willing to be cut by the word, now this is my opinion. If I'm wrong, God forgive me. Shut up. Because you are misusing what God has to say. God's word will never come back void.
That's right.
But if for example, if I am covered in feces and I hand you a cake, but the cake is clean and there's nothing wrong with that cake. But the fact that I'm covered in feces, I'm pretty sure you are going to have zero desire to touch that cake. So the medium...
have zero desire to look at you, let alone touch a cake.
Exactly. So the medium does matter. Not that you yourself are the important part of that equation. No. It's how you're presenting that. You have the ability to turn people off to God. Now, God's will is going to be done no matter what, period, end of sentence. But it might not involve you if you're not willing to do the right thing.
I would never want to be in a place where what I have said has turned someone away from God that they would never want to hear anything about him again. I would rather be on the side of hopefully I helped that situation. Hopefully I planted a seed and something will cultivate from it.
But if they reject God because of what you said, not because of how your presentation or you as yourself, they just reject God.
Right.
Your hands are clean. You have done the very best that you can, and that's all God asks. God gives them the choice.
Right.
It's not for you to decide. It's not how much you pray for it. God wants you to pray for it, and you should pray for it. But
He gives us
it,
free will and free choice.
yes, it's not going to be like if I do 10 Hail Marys, this person's definitely going to be saved. Where's my rosary? No, no, it's not how it works. They're going to do what they choose to do. Now, your prayer will move things and change things, but it ultimately comes down to also their choice.
Right.
I know that sounds a bit confusing, but meditate on it. Best I could say. So, you
And
have
it's all about your intention behind what you're saying. If you're doing what you were saying about using it to attack somebody's heart, they're not going to receive it well. It needs to be given in love.
and by all means, call out what's wrong, and that's fine. I'm not even talking about calling people out on that. I'm talking about you yourself personally.
Mm-hmm.
Your daily life is not that, and you are just completely exuding the opposite, but cherry picking the perfect time to try to snipe in that Bible verse. Well, you're doing it wrong. Just saying.
What's the verse in the Bible about when it says die to self daily? If you're not doing that for yourself, you have no right doing it to somebody else.
Yes. So that was all stemmed from bringing it back. That all stemmed from the Democratic primaries and people flip flopping. That was where my history lesson was about to come in. The history lesson is
Sorry,
it's okay.
I interrupted and you went down a very long bunny trail.
It's okay. See, Storm, this is why we need you, because we need you to bring it back, because you know me, I go off on trails.
And I like to listen to them.
Everything's a spider web for me. It's all
all goes back to the
Matrix. That's right. I'm surprised I haven't referenced the Matrix more, honestly, but I'm kind of proud of myself. Anyway, but no. So after all of that happened, after the Democratic primaries, after Kamala was elected, or no, sorry, not elected, was given the vice presidentship or asked to be the vice president, then she was asked in an interview. I am surprised the news asked, but she was asked, well, all that stuff you said about Joe Biden, and now you're working with him. The response was, "This is what makes me go what." The response was, "It was a debate." So you don't have any weight in what you say. So you will say what you need to say in the moment and not believe a blessed word of it. That's where I go, whoa, 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 this is wrong. No matter who does it. Now, then the next part is the election. Okay, so I'm going to go through a bit of a speed round here. So please follow me on this because I want to get to the next part.
Put your extra strap on.
Yeah. So the election. Election happened. People are upset about what the results were. Okay. There's always going to be people upset about the results. Here's where some issues lie. You have a lot of states decided to change their rules the last minute, and there was people talking about, I'm trying to think how to word this so YouTube algorithm doesn't kick in. People talking about nefarious ways that the election happened. That was really hard to run around that. And as they talked about all that,
I'm sorry, when you said nefarious, it made me think of, I think in the movie, the Minions, Despicable Me, Dr. Nefario.
I was thinking the same thing, actually. As soon as you said thinking about it, you said Nefario, Dr. Nefario. But yes.
We don't watch animated movies at all.
We don't have children. Yeah,
Are you kidding me?
We watched them before children.
I was going to say, we watched those before we had kids. So.
Our first movie we watched together was Shrek. This not like in theaters. We weren't that young, but we watched at our house.
Our first like real date,
quote unquote date, yes. But yes,
it was so romantic.
Oh jeez.
I'm sorry, I had to.
I'm not even getting into that one.
All right, bring it back.
All right. Bring it back, baby. Bring it back. No, so then all those things happened, and there was many court cases that went on. Those court cases were from the president himself were mostly thrown out on technicalities, not so much the merits of the case. Now, whether or not the merits of the case prove to be true, I don't know. Let that be actually investigated, seen, and then whatever happens, happens. No matter which side, I'm cool. The thing is, a lot of it hasn't been, and that's where people started to get more upset. And then this all comes down to the big one. And this is where I'm going to get a little upset.
The events that transpired exactly a week ago today.
Yes, the riots on Capitol Hill was the coup de grace of all of this, the crescendo.
A coup d'etat?
No, this is the crescendo of it all. So that, this is why truth matters.
Take
Because
and count to
these
500.
people who went to you want to go to a protest? Good. You want to protest something you're not happy about, whether or not it's right or wrong? Cool. You have a right to do so. The second you touch things of other people's and break into areas, you're wrong. You're freaking wrong. This has been covered in extent. And by the way, the person who carried the freaking Confederate flag into the congressional building, Capitol building. Are you serious? Are you freaking serious? And so once again, this is why you listen to it all. Conservatives who decided to do this and go into the building, and there's also a lot of there's a picture of this old bewildered woman there with a
wackadoo.
She's just waving a little flag like, look at me, I'm in a Capitol building. She obviously has no clue what she's doing. Reality Land, none of you people did. There's people who went there with screaming about hanging Pence. Are you serious? No, this is not how it goes. You lost every bit of the moral high ground. Well, the second you did this, every bit of the moral high ground. The second you step foot into someone else's area and destroy and then claim to be right, no, you're just as bad as the rioters. And over the summer, here's how the conservatives covered the riots. They said this is not okay, and they were right. The media said everything is fine, and they were wrong. And now this happens. Conservatives are now split in half somehow, saying, "Well, they were trying to stand up." If you can condone this, you are condoning what happened before from the other side. You can't claim to be in the right and do the exact same thing that you do not like and you are opposed to, and you have a moral obligation to disavow. No, you lost every bit of the moral high ground. And that's where this frustrates me, because then now the media, who over the summer said, well, everything and nothing to see here, literally, go online, look at the montages, and it said mostly peaceful.
Not only that, but what bothers me is how many, I don't want to say celebrities, or trying to watch my wording, how much it was encouraged over the summer for these riotings that took place. It was okay.
Yeah, it was virtue signaling is what it was. Everything is all about virtue signaling now. It's not about truth anymore. The truth is out the window. It doesn't matter, and that's a problem. Truth needs to matter. Made up
truths is what is important.
Well, there's your truth and my truth. No, there is the truth. Period. End of sentence. The truth. There's varying opinions.
Yes.
But truth is not an opinion. It's a fact. Your alternative facts coming. No, 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 not alternative facts. There's only real facts. There's no alternative, and there's none of that. None of that exists. There's truth and lies. Period. In a sentence. So my frustration comes in when you have media now going hard against them. Now, preference all of this. I agree. Go hard against this. Because it was wrong. Prosecute. Go after. Do everything under the law. No issues. None at all. I agree completely. But you have a choice now as the media. Either look back and say, we messed up and come to terms with that. Maybe even publicly say, you know what, we didn't do a good job. And guess what? If you admit to that, that's honesty. Whether now this is we're in a corporate world, so honesty can lose your money, lose your sponsors, all that. I get it. But for the love of God, where is anyone's integrity? It's gone. So you either have to look back and go, we were wrong, or you're only going to go against one side and then say, well, we have the moral high ground. No, you're a hypocrite. As Jesus said, you're a brood of vipers. Or no, what was that John about this? Either way, brood of vipers. You can't talk out both ends. It doesn't work. So here's what we have to do. Call out truth, call out wrong where it is. If you want to break and do all this crazy stuff, guess what? We have right now the rioters went to the Capitol. They destroyed a bunch of stuff, and there was 2 deaths. There was one from a lady who got shot there, and a police officer later on died from complications. Those are that I know about. There might be more from the time of this recording, but I don't remember. Sorry, but there was over 20 some deaths during the summer. $8 billion in damage. That's billion with a B, by the way. And none of this is right. None of it. So if you're outraged about what happened, you should be. But be outraged also with what happened before. If you're not being intellectually honest with yourself, and you are not being morally honest with yourself. Our morals mean something. And if you're just going to leave them to which way the wind is blowing, your morals are non-existent. And then wonder why is the world going the way it is? Everything's flexible, so it can go which way it wants, unless you say right and wrong. So this leads us to where we're at right now. The country has been split. And once again, I will blame the media for a lot of this. If they truly covered everything with impartiality, you can have people giving opinions. You can have news segments of opinion. It's fine. No issues there. But when everything is opinion and there's no just here's the facts, that's where you're starting to push a narrative. We have been split between 2 sides right now. You have one side saying that everything that the other does is some type of racist, some type of it's racist, sexist, misogynist, blah, 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 or phobic, one of the phobics. Pick one, roll the dice, there it is. So that's where so the one side is, they see that's all the other side is. There can be no nuance to it. There's no individualism to it. That's it. And then the other side sees everything as hateful, Marxist, and emotionally driven, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? There is truth to both of them.
But those truths in both of them don't make up the whole.
Yes.
For each side.
Those truths don't make up anything of what reality is. It's 2 separate truths that are absolute in the simple fact that they are minorities. Is there race that's out there? Of course. Is there crazy Marxism out there? Of course. course. I can give you plenty of evidence to that. And it is there. And I give you plenty of evidence to racism too. There's plenty of cop videos where cops are just doing horrible things. Horrible. I completely disagree with. I I am in no way for defund the police, but I am absolutely for reform
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen videos that it's just like, what? How does this happen? And everyone's scared and a lot of good cops are scared to confront the bad cops because you don't want to start something. Well, that's where truth divides. Some people don't want to see it. He doesn't come to bring peace, he comes to bring truth. And it's going to divide. So we've been pushed to these two sides that are so opposite of each other that you cannot even remotely see the other's vantage point. If you can't see the other's vantage point, there's no coming back. Because the second you step into somebody else's shoes and see where they're at and feel where they're at, that's when you can go, understand their opinion and have sympathy and empathy with it.
Mm.
But if you can't even fathom their shoes and say that their shoes are disgustingly uninhabitable, that you can't even try to look at them, how in the world do you expect things to get better unless you plan on beating your opinion into the other person?
There's no humility. There's no compassion.
Exactly. There's no
There's
there's no coming back from that.
a it's the word I'm looking for. Probably going to sound extreme, but a lack of humanity at
Well,
that point.
that's very true. Well, wait. Let me think about that for a second.
Well,
The Bible says that a man's heart is bent towards evil, so it's maybe too much humanity, not enough God. So,
I can agree with that statement.
so question one is where do we go from here? It's my opinion. Like I said before, there was for years. This has been building up for years. All these different things. There's been exit signs left, right, and sideways. We passed them all. The exit signs are in our rear view. We're in a one-way lane. It's a cattle chute. You can't turn around.
What I'm curious to know is I've seen a couple people have shared this on social media. What happened to the country that we live in where you had left, you had right, you had Dems, you had Republicans. But even though they had different beliefs, they could still come together and work with one another. Where did that start going south?
That
Or is that another topic for discussion?
that literally I could trace that back to the '70s and how that all went in with things. So that's a
Maybe I'm not educated enough in that department and have
no,
some
no,
homework to do.
no. That's a long explanation, and the easiest answer I can give,
Give us the short.
yes, is people decided that their opinion is right, and these people had power. They had the ability to use that power, and that power has been used in the form of influence, and that influence has been used in media for a long time now,
Yeah.
and it has just been slowly chipping in media and education specifically,
Yes, I agree with you there.
and it has been slowly chipping away at our ability to have any form of conversation, have any form of normality. It's all gone. So that's the simplest
I would have
explanation.
liked a better representation of
Gone. So
that.
where
Next
do
time we'll have glitter.
yeah? So where do we go from here? I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know where we go because I can. My opinion is I see a lot of not good stuff going forward. So what? The next question is, what's next for our country?
Well, where do we go from here as a nation?
Yeah. First, I'm talking as people. as like culture. Where do we go? I don't know, because if neither side
There's
can even see the others as human, as you said, human,
there is no moving forward.
you because you're it's essentially two people saying the other one doesn't deserve to exist. That's scary. That's not okay. And then you have what's next for our country. There's a bunch of
If you're gonna go down that road,
there's a bunch of
I dare not
scenarios.
even say it.
There's a bunch of scenarios that are not pretty. I'm not, and I don't talk to scare anyone, but it's how it is. It's not pretty. So, what do we do as Christians? This is the big topic. What do we do as Christians during this? What do you do when all hell breaks loose? What do you do if something magically gets better? Somebody waves a wand, everything gets better.
Be pleasantly surprised.
That's very true.
But I'd be even more scared at that point.
Yeah. So where's the other shoe gonna fall? Where is it? So number one
Troubles
thing.
of having anxiety.
Yeah. So what do we do as Christians? Number one, love. That's simple. We talked about love in our Who is God episode. God is love. We need to be like him, emulate him.
Song just popped into my head for you older Christians who used to bop to Michael W. Smith back in the
Stop showing our age.
early 90s. He had an awesome song called Love One Another, and when you said love, it just popped into my head. So check it out.
Reminisce about the 90s, and if you were born after that, remember everyone else is old.
No.
Sure. Okay, lie to yourself.
I am.
So, number one, we need to love. Go back to that episode where we talked about love and what that definition of that is. We don't have time to get into all that today. But we really need to love. And not hippie love that's everything's okay, man. No, everything's not okay.
No, it's definitely not.
We need to truly love each other. The best I'll give you is look at 1 Corinthians chapter 13.
The love chapter.
It will give you so much explanation. And now we have John 13:35. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, that you, if you love one another. You want to be Christians? I was calling out Christians or people online earlier using God as a sword and trying to snipe in the Bible at the perfect time to try to use it to tear somebody down.
Man, if the shoe was on the other foot, people are clearly not thinking how they would receive that if the same thing that they are trying to do to others was done unto them.
Yes.
Forgetting your Bible there.
Yes.
Do unto others as you would have done unto you.
Yes. So, you want to know who the followers of Christ are? Look at who's loving people. Look who's helping people, doing the best for people.
And not putting on this facade. Sorry, I keep bumping the mic. I'm not used to this. Not putting on this facade of acting like you love people. What's the old hymn?
Old Rugged Cross. I'm not sure which one you're going for.
They will know we are Christians by our love, by our love. They will know we are Christians.
I was told by someone not allowed to sing.
Well, unlike you, I have a voice of an angel. Not really. I just know how to carry a tune. The happy crow over there does not. The Bible says, "Make a joyful noise."
And I fulfill that promise.
No, every time you sing, I say the angels are crying because that is not a joyful noise. But I still love you anyway.
It's joyful to me, so in. But
it's joyful to the Lord.
So we need to know each other by our love. So guess what? You're every day, not just when you want to pop out the Bible.
Not just in church on a Sunday.
You can't be holy on a Sunday and live like hell Monday through Saturday. Yes, it doesn't work that way. So
your talk and your walk
And here's the rough
should
part
be
about
together,
all
hand
this
in hand.
about love. We need, this is going to be hard. And as soon as I say this, my wife's going to go, "Meow." She's going to curl up like a little.
Probably.
We have to be vulnerable. Yeah, see? We have to be vulnerable.
It's not a fun place to be.
Because being open and loving people means people are going to take advantage. People are going to stab you in the back. Now, love does not mean you will continue to allow yourself to get stabbed in the back over and over and over again. Love does not say you are a doormat.
Absolutely not.
So don't get that confused. But you have to be open and vulnerable. If you go through and say I love you from a distance and you can't get close, you lost the plot, because that's not love. That is you protecting you. In reality, you're being selfish. Sorry, it's what it is.
I'd like to just touch on that. You're getting me a little emotional here.
Okay.
Just what I did not want to do my first time being on this podcast. But going back to being vulnerable, it is the hardest thing to do, and it's the scariest thing to do. But I can honestly say in my moments that I've allowed myself to be vulnerable to other people, I have seen, what's the word I'm looking for, Sam? I have seen how I can help others through my vulnerability. Maybe not in that moment when I'm doing it or going through it, but hindsight, when I look back on situations, I can see where being vulnerable has benefited others for good, not being a doormat. And it's a big step to take to decide to be vulnerable to others. But when you're doing it with the Lord and asking for his help and asking for him to look out for your heart and just giving you wisdom and guidance in it, it's a lot easier. You don't have to be vulnerable alone.
That's the thing. You're never alone. Because if you have Christ in your heart,
You're not.
You have his backup all the time.
But it's very easily to forget that. Be able to forget that when you are looking at the dot.
Okay. I'll explain what that she means right there. Because
he's been using the dot for
I've taught in church for
many years. Ever since I've known you.
Yes, and
which is 13 years now.
Yeah. One example I like to use when I'm talking with mostly teenagers is I like draw a little dot on my hand. I say, "What do you see here?" Inevitably, everyone says the dot and looks at me like I'm an idiot. And I said, "Yes." How much bigger is the hand than a dot? They said, "Well, a lot." But what did you notice? Well, the dot. I said, "Okay." So obviously your focus was different. The same way how everything going on in life, your issues, your problems, they're very real. They're right there. They're the dot.
Current events.
They're the dot. But God is so much bigger than that. So where was your focus? So that I've been saying, like she said, I've been saying that for years. So.
And he's been telling me that for years, not like literally like the number 4, but many, many years.
Yes.
I think in the past maybe 7 years, I've finally applied that. Swallowing my pride there. But it definitely, Sam likes to paint a picture for you when he's trying to drive a point across.
I'm not an example-driven person at all.
You're good at it.
So we have to be vulnerable with each other to be able to love each other. That means with the people we completely disagree with. Second thing, for the love of God, Now this is back where I get a little more upset about things. Educate yourself. Educate yourself. Most of these people who went into the Capitol were going off of QAnon stuff. This is not one of our Unleashed episodes, so I can't say what I want to say. So they're going off of the QAnon stuff. That's baseless. Okay, not baseless. There's nuggets of truth in a lot of the things that they say, but when you take those nuggets and put it in together to this weaving narrative, that is completely false. Completely. And then you try to justify what you're doing as righteousness because you're trying to save the world. That's not what God called you for. He called you to save souls, not the world. That leads us into point number 3.
The gospel.
Remember your mission. Your mission is not to save the world, is not to bring everybody flowers and go, oh, look at everything's great. No, here's why I say that. We know that, and that's actually point number 4, is we know that the world is doomed. It has been foretold in the Bible. If you believe in the Bible, you believe that God said, this is all going to go away. And this is temporary. God is infinite. We talked about that before in our previous episodes. God is infinite. So this time on earth, to him, it's a blip. It's so small. To us, it's everything. But then we move forward into this thought process of, well, I need to make sure that I make every moment count. Yes, you do. But not making it count for you, making it count for eternity. Once again, call out wrong, call out different things. You can search that up on your other thing, copy and paste it. We have a screen in here to use your internet tab, copy, paste onto the document.
I don't know how to do that. I'm just going to look up the passage.
There.
Because I am
we are
not
live time teaching my wife technology.
I am not computer savvy. I know the basics, and that's what helps me get my job done every day.
So my what I'm saying is educate yourself, look for truth, and recognize that there's nuggets of truth in things, but that does not make a whole. In the same way how during the summer we had people going around talking about injustice, which is very true, but it is not the whole. There's so much more to there's nuance to so many different things. Stop trying to God is black and white, truth is black and white. The details of that truth are not there are black and white, but there's a lot of little things that you got to remember. And if you don't, you lost the plot. Over the summer, when cities were burning, you lost the plot. When you broke into the Capitol, you lost the plot. Everyone has been wrong. And the church's response to this, in my opinion, has been a lot of, you have some going for the right thing of building up and saying we can't stand for the wrong and we need to love. And you have other people going on the far end going, they're all terrible, blah, blah, blah. Or you have the other side saying, everything's okay. Now we're just going to sip our chai lattes. No, that's not how this goes.
No.
Truth is what matters. So educate yourself.
You have told me many times, you just lost it. I had the whole thought process there when you said about sipping the chai lattes. And we are to love, but we are not to agree with things that directly go against what the word says.
Okay, for example of this, hot take, not really. As a Christian, I have an adamant and firm belief that abortion is murder. It's wrong, and it's not right. You can't justify it. Now, you're talking about what if the mother's saving the mother's life? Yes. Because if you don't, then both of them are going to die, and God says you need to choose life. So obviously, it's you're going, and if the baby's life is not viable outside the womb, then there's no other choice. Now you talk about what, and then you go to and then the second argument to that, which I am going to steal Ben Shapiro's answer to this. He said, "Well, what about cases of rape and incest?" And he said, "Well, that's obviously the saddest scenario you could pick. Is this person also quadriplegic and has mental issues? Um, that scenario is less than a tenth of a percent of actual abortions. We cannot cater our laws to that.
No.
So, and also you can't cater your morals to that. Unfortunately, the baby's life is now the baby's life, not yours."
And the way it came about is obviously
Yeah.
horrible.
Yes, I have. Thank you for helping me specify that.
Just horrible. But there are other options. There are many, many people.
We're more than willing to adopt.
Yes.
And you can even, there's so many different options with that. But the point that I'm making with this is that's something that's very black and white. It's right and wrong. But guess what? Someone comes and says to a church and goes, "I had an abortion and I regret it and whatever," or even say, "I had an abortion and I need some help from a food bank," whatever. If you reject that person, then that's not love. You lost the plot. You
And you
need,
just hardened that person's heart
yes.
to receive from anyone else.
What, what did Jesus do when they were ready to stone the woman? He said, "Woman, where are thine accusers? There are none. So go and sin no more." He said what you did was wrong, but
He called the
I
sin out,
but I love you.
and he did it in love.
We need to call sin out, but also be willing to swallow our anger and pride.
Listen, their choices, those moral choices, should not be making us act in anger towards them. If anything, if you are a true Christ follower, that is where your compassion comes in.
Yes.
And that is where Christ's love fills.
Yes. An example of that, I didn't do this one either, but an example of that.
We're running out of time, Happy Crow.
Yes, I will wrap it up. Um, me and my dad, we had an interesting childhood. That is going to be for a later episode. Um, but I had a lot of anger, a lot, and you can call it righteous anger, whatever.
He
But
also had a lot of hurt.
yes, me holding on to it, wrong. There was a moment in church. I looked at him and I saw repentance in his eyes, and in a second, I was broken. And I said, "I forgive you. I'm holding on to this." In a second. Now, that's not going to be everyone's. That's not going to be everyone. But the point is, whether it was instantaneous or something you have to work through for years, you and God, and or a counselor if you need one, by all means, there's no problem with going to one.
Absolutely not.
But you, once you release that, that's love. That's real love. And wait, back to the other. Actually, you know what? Skip it now. I'm going to go to this one. In John 14, 1 through 4, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it were not so, I wouldn't have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that
Where I am.
that where I am, you may also be. And where I go, you know, and the way you know."
That is the New King James Version.
Next time we use NIV, so I'm not stumbling with myself.
Or I can read it.
That is true.
That's my preferred thought process. Just went.
Your preferred way to read. But yeah, so all of this breaks down all the talk of love, all the talk about the craziness that happened, and all the talk about the separation that we have and people's fears and anxieties, step back and say, take heart. Jesus said, I've already overcome. No matter, I love the Jim Carrey Grinch movie. And then at the very end of it, they lose the brakes on their little sled, and then she's like freaking out, the little girl. He's like, even if we're horribly mangled, there'll be no sad faces on Christmas. The point is, even if this world tears itself apart, which the Bible says it eventually will, Jesus has already overcome. Our perception of time is irrelevant to his because he doesn't have one. Time is a construct he created for us. We have to operate in that knowledge that it's already over. We're already in heaven with God. We're waiting for our physical bodies and our minds to comprehend that and get to him. Once we can accept that, it makes everything around us kind of seem not as important, and you're only focused on your mission, which is teaching, loving, sharing,
I was just going to ask you
mentoring.
if you could elaborate on the gospel
Yeah.
for maybe some of our viewers who aren't sure what that is.
The gospel is that this world is corrupted by sin, and there is no way we can get to heaven, period, end of sentence. And then we were created to be with God. We separated ourselves from God. And then he said, I want you back, so I'm going to give myself to you because I love you. He gave himself to us and said, I am going to let myself get shredded apart on a human cross, die, and be the substitute for what you can't be. You can't fix yourself because, and this I've said this in almost every episode, we all suck. You can't fix yourself. So I know that, so I'm going to fix it for you. I'm going to be the thing that you need. I'm going to bring you back to me. I can't live without you. Well, not that you can't live without you. No, I can't stand being without you. There we go.
I'm sorry, I love watching you.
I can't stand being without you. He wants to be with us so much that he gave his son's life, which God and Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Trinity. So you can say God gave himself to us.
John 3:16.
And in that moment, he gave up, and then he gave up the ghost for us, and later he said, "Follow me." That doesn't mean this is one thing that I think the church a lot of times misses. It's not about praying a prayer. Yes, we do need to pray a prayer. It's not, well, if you're not baptized, you're not saved. No, no, God never said that.
No.
What he said was, "Follow me." So that means we need to, by following him, we need to act like him, leave all the crap that we have in us, all our pride, all that, throw it out the window because it's not important. He is what's important.
I'd like to add to that before you go on. When he says, follow me, he doesn't want the perfect you. He wants the broken you. All of the things that may make you feel that you are not worthy. He wants it all because he's going to use it for his glory and for his kingdom. He doesn't want us to be perfect.
In our weakness, he is strong. He loves to do that because he also likes to show off. That's a separate one, but he does love to show off. He loves to take little things and that it's not possible for it to go the X, Y, or Z way and go, oh, I'm going to make it happen. I got you. Now you have no one else to say this was but me. Because on our reality, we only will take the credit for it because that's what we do.
Because we're humans.
Yep.
And we stink.
Yep. So the gospel is echo all that. God saying, come back, I love you. But you have to accept that gift. Part of that is, prayer, we're talking about prayer, praying, but following him. If you need help with that, please contact us. We will point you in different directions, however you need. We're not all knowing or anything like that. We're still walking and
Absolutely
learning.
not.
I'm very far from perfect, and trust me, sometimes it takes this lovely lady across the table from me to bring me back down to earth because sometimes I get a little worked up about things.
Never.
But so that's the gospel. So take heart in all that. Take
I
heart in what we have. Take heart in who He is. That no matter what happens here, we will overcome. We have overcome. We have to remember that, or else you're going to give up in despair, or you're constantly waiting for something spectacular to happen. When God says, "Just follow me," and you're going to recognize the spectacular in the small things. Because some people are waiting for something that God said, "I put something right here in front of you. You didn't take the small thing, so I can't give you the big thing." So you have to be used by Him. Know His voice. How do you know His voice? Get in His Word. Pray, worship, love Him, and believe me, He's loving you back. He does. Final thoughts.
have a couple things I want to add.
Okay.
So when you were saying about we as Christians already know the end, our end is in heaven with Him. I think we had the discussion a while back. I was myself having some doubts about things. Again, we are not perfect. Um, there's times when we question God. Um, and you have said to me before, it's okay to question. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry. Don't stay there. He doesn't want you there. But what I'm trying to get to is I asked you the question of, okay, we believe in God all of our lives. And what happens if we die and there's no heaven? Did we live a lie our whole life? I think I more or less asked you this as a witnessing tool to somebody if somebody had that question for me. I don't know how to answer that. So I asked the Happy Crow what his response would be. And do you remember what that was?
Uh, to me, it's not a wasted life. A life based on morals, based on loving people, based on giving of yourself, because you're always giving and loving. If that's a wasted life, that's all right by me.
You had said that, but you also said I would rather
Oh,
have
that
believed.
I rather be wrong and die in that than be right and die in not that. I would rather err on the side of caution. Not that that's what we're doing,
No, 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 no.
but
I guess
that's
my point is if someone that is watching right now has questions, we all have had those same questions some point in time in our walk, and we'd be more than happy to help you with those questions. There was another thought I had, but it has left my brain.
it's okay. So I guess we'll end it on remember to love, remember your mission, the gospel, focus on souls, educate yourself, love one another,
And remember John 16:33.
and just I've told you all these things that you may have peace in this world, for you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. You already won. Just accept that and accept what happens and say, it's already won. Not that you're a doormat. Don't be a doormat. But also, Jesus is not saying to go out and you're the avenger. No, He is the avenger. You're supposed to be the one chasing after Him. So chase after Him, love one another. Please stop reading.
Read the word.
Yeah, read the Bible more. All right. Thank you guys. Catch you later.